What makes you think you deserve it?
When you've been working since you were 13, promise mom by everything. Burnt so often, fire talking, scars so dark they steal your dreams. Nightmares to the young and clean. Life will rain for some it seems. Pray for days when heaven stays, but you ain't put no work in for the crown. You ain't put no work in for the crown.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Unplugging podcast number 13, Build a Better Diet. We'll be talking about diets today and nutrition.
Oh yeah, so here we go guys. Okay, so episode number 2 here when it comes to health and fitness, all right? So again, moving forward to episode 2 for nutrition. Yeah, so we're on episode number 13 now as a whole, right. But we're going to make this into a bit of a habit here, guys. So just a quick update on what to expect moving forward now. I want certain weeks to be about health and fitness and certain weeks about relationships. Other weeks could be about maybe politics or real estate. Like we're not there yet, but we're going to get to that point where we're going to start having weeks and we'll announce how the topics are going to be or what they're going to be the week prior. Okay. So keep in mind, next week we're back on relationships. I have some topics in mind. I'm just kind of deciding on what I like to talk about, but I might just surprise you guys on the spot. But anyway, Today's episode, building a better diet. Okay. A quick little recap from what we talked about on the last episode. So we went over kind of some quick studies on what women and men find attractive physically when it comes to the demands and mating strategies from the opposite sex, okay? That's important because we can't keep going in circles with each other and just having this misconception and placating to bad behaviors on, okay, well, I'm out of shape, so therefore I'm gonna have this delusion where I can just get whatever kind of girl I want. And then the same thing goes for the women. Oh, well, I'm out of shape, but at the end of the day, like, I'm still gonna have men taking me seriously, even though my fertility is completely bad, and then my waist-to-hip ratio's off. And like, men aren't gonna go for that. They're just not, unless they have to, unless they have no other choice. And we've even discussed this on our other videos. Like, don't be the person the opposite sex settles for. Just don't. Why? If you're not first place, why are you going for second, third, fourth, fifth, and so on? Come on, guys. Come on. So anyway, now we're going to move on really quick here, and we're just going to go straight into how to build a better diet. We left off on the last episode more on other scientific facts, on weight loss versus weight gain, the weightlifting aspect, of course. We discussed a little bit on program design, so let's just kind of jump right into nutrition stuff. So mainly what I want to talk about today, I want to talk a little bit more on the basic macronutrients. So we might get into a little bit when it comes to like the minerals and vitamins and branched chain amino acids and the components of things like that, but we'll kind of see how the flow of the topic goes today. So the first thing I kind of want to get in touch with right now is the macronutrient known as protein. All right. So for those who personally know me, I'm not even going to say addicted. Okay. That's addiction, and following something religiously, routinely, on a good basis is totally different. All right. So routinely, okay, I follow a pretty strict protein diet. I try to have at least 30 to 35 grams of leucine. So that's one of the main branched chain amino acids, and it's the main component when it comes to muscle protein synthesis, and it can independently act on itself without relying on the other two branched chain amino acids, such as isoleucine and valine. All right. Little science there, just for people to know, because there are some pure leucine supplements out there that which you can supplement with, so that's fine. But in most servings should be about 3 grams of leucine. If you're going like protein supplements with powder, that's totally fine. But we're going to distinguish going from choosing between branched chain amino acids and powdered protein, and that's the one that's going to have like more calories and things like that. The whey protein, right? Or casein protein. We're going to talk about all that, don't you worry. So starting off with the more fundamental and rudimentary things here. So according to studies, which we don't have for now, okay, again, I want this to be more generalized, and we'll have some studies later on. I just want this to be just straight to the point, and you guys get rolling from there. So protein is one of the main macronutrients next to carbs and fats. Now, if we're looking at this from an exercise physiological standpoint, let's try to talk a little bit about how the body prioritizes fuel in the body. There's a bit of a hierarchy that goes with this. The first macronutrient the body's going to use mainly to fuel the body, okay, to fuel itself for performance activities, for running, for jumping, anything really, are carbohydrates. All right. So in simplest form, it's glucose. And Chris, now that we're talking about glucose, so I know you asked me on the last episode, how long does glycogen kind of stay stored in the body? From what I read, there isn't really a high limit to how long it stays within the muscle. Once there's extra glucose, it's gonna store whatever is left within the storages. So if the glycogen storages are filled up already, now the glucose has to go into other functions of the body, because it's the same. It can either be converted to fat, it could be used in the body to fuel other sources right away, immediately within the bloodstream, and then if the body needs to tap into reservoirs, hence the muscle itself, muscle stored glycogen, then it's going to do that. It's going to tap into extra reserves, the storages, to keep fueling. That's why it's so important to pre-fuel, because even if we talked a little bit about how you can do 1 gram per minute after the 1 hour preloading before you work out, before you run, as to continue fueling the body, you can rely on the blood glucose that's already going to be running in the blood. That's what the body is going to mainly do. But if there's no glucose left to go into the blood to fuel, now it has to tap into reservoirs, and now it takes the glycogen and converts it to glucose. It breaks it down into glucose to now go into blood sugar. All right, so just kind of a little bit of the science, the physiology that kind of goes into that. So glucose is first, then fats, then amino acids. Now, there are supplements where people, when they're trying to go for more weight loss, they'll go for amino acids during the workout if they're kind of depleting themselves of glycogen and glucose. That's a strategy.
Okay.
I recommend, however, if you're going to do weight loss, you don't use protein at all for reservoirs, because if the body goes for protein, it has to dig it within the muscle, so it degrades the muscle when you do it that way. You need muscle protein synthesis, and you need the amino acids for muscle growth to happen. That's that anabolic window that muscles are going to have. So without the protein, if you're grabbing protein from the muscle, that's where sarcopenia kind of comes on in. There's degradation in the muscle, so that's where the size is going to be lost. The fibers are going to start converting from the type 2s, like I mentioned, the type 1s, things like that. Even though it'll probably go into like the low grade of the type 2s, so it's oxidative, but it's still muscular because it's more on that endurance aspect, right? But it's not going to produce high grades of force. It's not going to, when you're powerlifting, that's also not good. Like, you need to be at like the highest for producing power and such, but that's a topic we'll talk about in another aspect. So you don't want to do that. You don't want your body tapping in to protein, muscle protein, amino acids to really fuel you, unless it's direct. Like maybe if you do like amino acids like this and you use it directly to fuel your body, that's a different story. But then you have to fuel about other things too, like lysine, glycine, other amino acids that you might have to use essentially, like the essential amino acids that you have to digest orally. Now you can use those to fuel. But overall, the body's going to choose ultimately to go for glucose first. And if it doesn't have glucose, then that's where free fatty acids broken down from stored fat comes in to fuel you. Dr. Cervantes, thanks again for joining us, my man. Nutrition once again, and we're just going over a little bit of the pathways, the nutritional pathways the body goes through, and just a kind of a hierarchy on what the macronutrients go for. So moving forward now, and we now that we kind of understand the hierarchies, first it's carbs, then fats, then protein. The only time the body really uses protein as a fuel is when it goes into this quote-unquote survival mode, okay? Right. The survival mode, like, you're going through heavy starvation, basically.
Fasting, prolonged fasting.
Yep.
Yeah,
starving yourselves.
3 to 4 days or something,
Post-apocalyptic, let's say you're in Fallout and you're fighting for food and you're starving yourself. Oh yeah, you're gonna get small. That's how you get small, guys. Not in a good way. Definitely not in a good way. Now, and again, we're gonna talk more about like the hierarchies with how we can use the fuels and such. But we'll get on to protein first because that's extremely important. So the one thing I kind of want to get out of the way here, and there's multitudes of studies which we'll show later on, it's I get this little stigma, and this isn't protein. I see when people go on high protein diets, I see other people who are kind of against high protein diets, they tend to pathologize the individuals who are on high protein diets. And to me, I think that's a bit abysmal to me, because there's no science that proves that.
Yeah.
There's nothing. And even if there is, let's just say there is, I didn't find any. It's one study that's probably very, very weak and has nothing backing it up.
Right.
You were gonna say something here?
No, it's just there's a lot of companies out there that like to push like their own kind of science, which is like biased.
Their truth.
These companies are companies that the big food industries, that like have like a lot of carbs in their, like cereals and have Kellogg's, all that shit.
But it's business.
Right.
It's just pure business. They gotta
say like, oh, red meat is bad. Don't eat that. Eat our cereal instead. It's full of carbs and this and that.
Which, it's funny that you bring that up because there's this, we have an old saying that too much of something is bad for you, right? In this case, however, I will happily say we don't have any sort of evidence right now where too much protein is bad.
No, there isn't.
There's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. In fact, I think I read a study not too long ago where we even pushed it to like 5 grams per kilogram or even 10 grams. That was a fun study Nova Southeastern University did where some person ended up getting, he's a good friend of mine actually, he's a colleague of mine, big dude, pretty big dude, he's famous on Instagram and everything, he has like a following. And
Sure.
yeah, I'll probably ask him to be on the show because he did a study with me actually, and he ingested, not every day, he ingested a little over 1,000 grams of protein per day.
1,000?
Yes.
That's expensive.
That's yeah, but he told me that he ended up eating Chipotle like most of the time, and then he ingested protein shakes most of the time and things like that.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. And to me already, with the knowledge I had back in the day when I was still in my undergraduate program, even going into my graduate program, to me it's like, okay, that's a lot. I would say, wow, that's a lot off rip. But then we find out that there weren't any adverse effects when he was ingesting that high quantity of protein. So I found that very fascinating. It's like, okay, so even if we put this absurd amount of protein, whether it's optimal or not, it doesn't have any adverse effects to the body. Because the whole stigma that's around here, right, is high protein damages kidney function. And yet there's no research. I remember I actually ended up getting into a pretty dumb and bad debate with a student from Broward College not too long ago. Well, this was back in like 2000. I can't remember.
What do you mean by bad? Like you were losing this debate, or
no? It was a horrible debate. Like I'm showing research on how her argument was it damages the kidneys. It causes I forget the crystallization cysting. No, it's not cysting. It's I forget what it's called.
You're talking about in the kidneys, the urine. What do you call them? Stones or something, or?
The kidney issues, like it causes kidney failure, and then it causes crystallization within the joints. I forget what that's called. It also happens when you're ingesting pea protein and when you're allergic to fish. I forget what it's called.
No idea.
But it's not cyst. I forget what it's called, but it's a crystallization. There's a term for that.
Okay.
So I showed her, I think 4 different studies proving why her case is false.
Right.
And she wasn't accepting it. She really wasn't. And she thought of every single argument she probably could to prove the research wrong. And it was mostly anecdotes. Like, oh, well, that study's done on athletes. It's not on people who are non-athletic. It doesn't matter. Like, they're still people. Just because it's an athlete versus a non-athlete, they still have the kidneys. They still have liver. They still have muscles. What's the case here? Like, it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah. The problem is sometimes it's like when they do these studies, especially with people that are meat eaters and stuff like that, or the vegans versus like the meat eaters and stuff like that. The thing is, like, usually people that eat meat also eat a lot of junk food too. You know, with carbs, like burgers, fries, this and that, and then they're like, oh, well, look at them, they have heart disease and shit. But
Yeah.
It's not because of the meat though. It's because like all this other junk.
Yeah, it's the overall diet.
Exactly.
It's just the overall diet. So. And the thing is that we were monitoring these guys in the study. Like they had Fitness Pal, and then we were watching all their diets and things like that, and they worked out. So yeah, you could say, well, they're healthy. It's like, well, that's kind of the whole point. Even if they're not healthy, what we're trying to do is that even if they're not healthy, when we have a high protein diet, that still doesn't correlate with people having kidney failure, because if you look at the grand scheme of things, looking at all the research that we have, it doesn't correlate back to high protein intake anyway. It still doesn't. So
everything they eat.
like if you look at Western diets, how it's mostly fried food and fried chicken and all this cholesterol and all that stuff, and you single out protein, like they're not on high protein studies, they're not on high protein at all, and you see all the dysfunction that goes on in their bodies, high cholesterol, the blood clotting, artery diseases and things like that. Like all that stuff contributes to just a bad diet in and out of itself, with the excessive amounts of grease, the excessive amount of sodium. It's like that's what causes the real problems in the body. And even if you include the protein, and even if something does happen, you're still not correlating it back to protein because there's no research that indicates that. It's not. And then she brought up the whole thing where it's like, oh, well, if I'm not going to give that diet to my uncle because he has kidney problems and things like that. And it's like, well, I would disagree too, because again, you're talking about anecdotes, you're talking about your own experiences, and you're trying to individualize when in general, that's not how it works. Right. Your anecdotes, your opinions, your experiences does not refute these facts. It just doesn't. Like I can call these scientists right now and I can just say, look, I can put you on a call right now with one of these scientists, and they will probably light you up. They will light fire underneath you and tell you how wrong you are. And good doctors, especially, yeah. And these are peer-reviewed articles. Right. These are scientifically proven. So keeping that up, like we don't have research on that, you know, we just don't. So yeah, and then just kind of after that was so funny, I ended up kind of going off on her a little bit. It's like, okay, you know what, like you're extremely delusional. Like you're one of those people who you just can't stand being wrong. You just have to be right. You're extremely masculine. Like red flag already right there for you. So
girls know like that.
Yeah, just like and at that point I just like didn't even care, to be honest with you. Just absolutely didn't care. Yeah, I ended up trying to make peace with her after that, but then she started being more masculine. So I was like, you're one of those girls who's just lost causes from there. Headache in a relationship, but we're not talking about that. So with the protein stuff, that's pretty much how it is there. So we don't have any research right now indicating that, okay?
So it is out there though. I mean, not that it's a bad thing, but that if you stick to like meat and eggs and all that kind of stuff and no junk food, you're gonna be really healthy.
Yeah, because it's, again, like if we're going off the statistics, we're going off all the science, that's a good thing, because now we have a baseline on what we're going to be doing. So we'll talk about like the meat consumption. We'll talk about all that. That's not going to be a problem to talk about, but just kind of going on protein itself. If we're talking about weight gain and weight loss, this is kind of what we were preemptively talking about the very last time. So if we're talking about first weight loss, guys, okay, regardless, the macronutrient protein already by itself, it causes the highest rate of thermogenesis in the body, meaning it causes heat to generate in the body in kcals. So it costs more. The reason why that happens is because if you're trying to ingest protein substances or anything that's protein, it's basically like you're trying to crack rocks. You're trying to melt rocks. You know what I mean? Like if
it's the hardest to digest.
Yeah, it's harder to not process, but it takes the body more work to process through the body. So now that you have the protein in the body, it's going to cause more calories to be pretty much used to burn and break down the protein to form into amino acids and to its purest form, right? Mm-hmm. So that way it goes into the muscle and causes the muscle protein synthesis. But if we're talking about fats, they come in calories, right? So carbs and protein have 4 calories per gram. Fats is 9. So
that was 8, but okay.
It's 9, yeah. Okay. So it's 9. So it's the thing with that is, what people will say is that, well, because it's more calories, wouldn't it make sense that you burn it with more calories to break down? No, because it's fat. Fat is not the same substance. It's a different thing. It's going to cost, it has more calories, but it doesn't cost more calories to burn from the body. So that's the thing. So, and carbs, it's simple. It's 4 calories, but it goes straight into the blood. It just goes straight, unless it's like an actual food source, and you have to break all of it down, and then it disperses everything like that.
Fat.
Yeah. And then, so that's another strategy for everybody. So for everybody who's trying to lose weight, just understand, high protein diets are effective when it comes to retaining muscle, increasing muscle mass, losing body fat percentages, which is why we were talking about, like, yes, you can lose weight and gain weight because you're decreasing your body fat percentages and you're decreasing in fat mass, that's weight, but you're also increasing or preserving lean body mass. So the whole scale thing, I get it. Like, if you go on the scale, you don't see a change in the number, it's like, all right, I get it, that's fine. But just kind of look at yourself in the mirror for a moment and say, okay, how much muscle did I just gain versus, are my abs showing a little bit more? Did I lose circumference around my waist? Did I gain circumference muscle-wise? Am I more vascular? Like, look at those features. Definitely take into account those are features that happen when you're training. When you're training, when you're on a good diet. That's just a normal thing that happens. So it's not something to pathologize. It's not something that if I'm going to go up to somebody, I see a whole bunch of veins, it's like, whoa, this guy has like a mental disorder, you know what I mean? Like, no, absolutely not. Like, the guy works out. Like, he's probably very strict with his diet. So, and talking about now when it comes to different forms of protein, of course, one is food sources. And then we have the milk proteins, milk, dairy. We have the whey protein, and we have whey protein isolate, the 100% whey protein, casein protein, and there are differences to those, okay? What I strongly suggest, I'm gonna start off with this one. Off rip, you guys should be choosing, if you're choosing the protein powder route, the dairy ones, is go for isolate. Protein 100%, whey isolate protein 100%. That's the purest form of whey protein. So in general, they're mostly going to have all their branched chain amino acids, and they're most likely going to have, usually both of them are between 2.2 grams and 3 grams of leucine. 3 grams of leucine right there, right? So, and again, leucine is the one branched chain amino acid that can independently act on its own to cause muscle protein synthesis, growth, okay? Isoleucine and valine, they cannot work together, just the two of them by themselves. They can't be codependent. They have to be codependent with leucine in the picture. So it's like the big three, right? So all 3 of them can act together codependently, but leucine is the only branched chain amino acid that can independently act on its own for muscle protein synthesis. So if you guys are looking at leucine supplements or just regular branched chain amino acids, pure BCAAs, in which have those 3, you're fine, you're good. And at that point, you just pick whatever flavor you want. Most of the BCAAs are pretty good, actually.
So usually any regular whey protein you find in the store or something, they'll have those amino acids in there? Or?
Yeah, if you go to GNC, if you go to Amazon, I think Costco has a few, but it's more like collagen form and the healthy stuff there.
I mean, most of them all have it, right?
Most of them do. Yeah.
What about soy? The soy ones, that's not good, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't go for those. Those are generally not too high good quality.
Right? It used to be a thing back in the day.
Yeah, because we just have so much more research when it comes to whey protein, and just soy in and of itself, like it's because soy has estrogen.
Yeah.
You don't want that, and especially for men. Like if our estrogen levels go up, like that's not good. That's when we start developing breasts and we get a belly and we start becoming feminine. Yeah, so we definitely don't want that, guys. So don't be soy boys. Don't be the
soy protein.
Yeah, so pretty much stay away from those. Go for the good quality. So whey protein isolate, I say that because it's fast digesting protein. So if you guys are going for more muscle building and trying to put on some mass, I would say go that route. Now, I'm going to explain why when I'm comparing with amino acids, right? So if you're going that route, you can still lose weight. I've done it before. I went on pure whey protein powders, and you can still lose weight versus if you're just to go for pure branched chain amino acids, and then you're going for the protein powder, the whey protein isolate, or if you have a combination of whey and casein, which I don't recommend, because they're conflicting. Casein is slow protein, and whey is fast. So there's like not an optimal amount, I would say, for both of them, especially if you're reading through nutrition facts. Some of them might not even show the branched chain amino acids on them, but you want fast digesting protein after you're done working out. You don't want anything slowing down the process. So no casein after that.
Okay.
So whey protein, like I said, it's fast digesting protein. It already comes with a plethora of branched chain amino acids with, a plethora of essential amino acids, and then it already comes to the main BCAA. So keep that in mind. So when you're building the muscle, of course, you need some calories to support that as well. But you do need to have the training. The training has to stress out the muscle enough, and then you have the protein. So remember, if you guys are training for muscle, you're training for size, you're trying to increase your force production, and if you're doing, I guess, mediocre training, or the training's not optimal, like there's no soreness, or your training is just not good, you're not producing high amounts of force, and you're getting high amounts of protein, that's not really a good correlation. Because in order, like I can drink a whole bunch of protein, not work out, that doesn't mean I'm going to gain muscle mass. It doesn't work like that. You have to stress the muscle enough to cause the effect, the anabolic window to be open, and for muscle protein synthesis, opening that window to open up. And then you can start supplementing on protein, and then even foods that have higher protein. Because there are definitely good studies out there that there's chocolate milk studies. There's one where it's pure amino acids, one with whey protein isolate and casein, which we're about to get to in a moment.
Okay.
All of those are proponents and agonistic towards building muscle. So again, guys, like I said in the first one from this week, you got to train. You don't train, you're not going to put on muscle mass, and you're most likely just going to keep putting on calories. God forbid you go up in body fat percentages and then you go up in fat mass. Like it don't do that. It's just not.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about weight loss now, even the protein powder is still good because it manages appetite. That's number one. If you're able to manage appetite and you're able to manage your frequency of meals, even though we can kind of go different realms on this one, you can increase your frequency of meals but decrease how big the meals are. You can increase the size of the meals but decrease your frequency. So you can it's either or.
I'd rather go with bigger meals and lower frequency, so you can have more time to burn fat when you're like not eating. You know what I'm saying? When your insulin levels drop, you start burning fat.
It's kind of funny we mentioned insulin as well, because what you'll see, some people who, like we were talking about, who are trying to promote their products and say, well, don't go on high protein diets, they'll always say, oh, because if you ingest protein, your insulin levels goes up. Listen,
but not like carbs though.
Whatever you ingest, your insulin levels are always going to spike up.
Right.
Always.
But there's different levels of it though.
There's different levels.
Carbs, if you take sugar in, like, it's gonna go up a lot.
Yeah. But my point is, your insulin levels will always kick up.
Yeah.
Whenever you eat something, always, no matter what.
Fat.
No matter what, yeah.
We'll go into burning whatever you got in your belly.
Yeah. But the whole point of insulin is just to push sugar into the blood, push sugar so it's more fueled up, and then whatever's left to store. Yeah, that's pretty much the whole point. But if there's too much of the insulin that's just kind of being shot up, too much of it, and there's no sugar even being pushed in, like, that's a problem. That's where we start getting like the diabetes and things like that.
Different levels though. I looked into that stuff.
Yeah. Let's see, Dr. Cervantes, do you recommend to lose weight first, then after build muscle mass?
Good question.
Yeah, very good question. So here's what I recommend, just personally me. If you are pretty overweight, I would focus on losing the weight first. But if you're, let's say like you're an ectomorph, well, an ectomorph, like there's nothing to lose. You're a thin guy or a thin woman, like there's nothing to lose, so just gain muscle mass. But if you're, let's say you're kind of in the middle, like in the middle, you're in the middle of, maybe you're borderline looking like you need to work out, like you're not like fat or anything, but you're just like, you kind of need to work on yourself a little bit. And you're like kind of average looking. Let's put it that way. You're average looking, but you're between average looking and then borderline looking like you just need to stop eating certain things and you probably should work out, right?
Or something.
Yeah, you just got like a belly's kind of coming up a little bit, you know. But your frame is all right. Your frame is okay. Maybe you got decent sized arms. Maybe it looks like you do a few things here right there. You know, you just gotta fix yourself up a little bit. Yeah. That point, I would put on muscle first, 100%. Build the muscle first, because even that. Let's take it a step further. Actually, what I would do first, and I even mentioned this on our last video. Do skinfold testing. Go for skinfold testing. The tool it's on Amazon. It's inexpensive. It's like $16. And if you have somebody who knows how to do it, and we'll probably make a video on how to do all that, even though there's a whole bunch of videos on how to do that anyway. But we'll mention that in like another video. But while mentioning it here, if you're gonna do skinfold testing, always measure the right side of your body. Why? Because less fat is distributed towards the right side versus the left. So the left side of your body has more fat distributed over to it. Yeah.
I did not know about that.
When I found out about it, it's like, really? No, but it's probably like not that big of a percentage anyway.
I mean, is that why like some women have here one boob a little bigger than the other?
But if we're talking about the left side and they let us look like, hey, can I just see if, you know, this and that, then we'll see. We'll see. Or if we just get like a little mini scale and say, hey, put your breast right here and then see if we'll see how much it weighs, you know. But that'll be, we can tell by that. That's a good weight, right? But yeah, to answer your question, Dr. Cervantes, you're going to hear this a lot from the podcast, honestly. Okay, so you're 30 pounds overweight. Well, if I'm coaching you or if I'm a personal trainer working with you and such, I would have to really dig in to more on the anthropology of it, right? Like I would just have to skinfold you. I'll have to get some circumferences from you. If we do a DEXA scan, which I don't have that type of technology, that's expensive as heck. Schools have that. Then I'll be able to see kind of where we're at, because I'll be able to see how much muscle mass you have in relevance to fat mass, your body fat percentages, and then I can even possibly get a total energy expenditure of how many calories you're burning metabolically throughout the day. So those are important variables. I think it's really irresponsible, and it's just not prudent for coaches and trainers to just be like, oh, you want to lose weight? Okay, let's just get you on a program. No, man, like check this guy out, check this woman out a little bit. Like, what are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What's their diet looking like? Do they have any hormone issues? Skinfold them. How much muscle mass do they have in relevance to fat mass? Are they hydrating most of the time? Do they have certain vitamin deficiencies? Like, we gotta look into all these types of things. You know what I mean? It's not prudent. It's just not prudent. Even though you're gonna see some people who are doing some malpractices on that as well, and they're just like, hey, look, I got this body. You know what I mean? But I can get you this body, and then they have no degrees. They have no science backing up anything. It's just like, yeah. And speaking on that one, I implore you guys 100%. Just like everything else, look into this stuff on your own time as well. Like, I even tell you guys when we talk about relationships, look at all this stuff. Like, that's why we have our Discord channel. Like, we post studies all the time to back up our claims and back up the facts and back up all the things we talk about here. So it's not just something that we're just conjuring up, all right? Like, take the time to look into this stuff so that way you guys aren't left in the dark about that. So yeah, with the 30 pounds overweight, I've had to look into, okay, like, what are we really overweight? Because I know there's like charts also that say, okay, a person who's this height with this muscle mass, with this weight, whatever, okay, are they really overweight, or is it just a perception, how they perceive themselves to be?
Yeah, I think when it comes to these charts of like how high or how tall they are, a lot of people like, well, I think they just go by weight, but we don't know about their muscle mass either, which factors in. And a lot of people who are like pretty good in shape are like considered obese. You know what I'm saying? And it's not true.
I go to doctor's offices.
You know, like, Leo, you're obese, dude.
Yeah, they tell me I'm overweight or obese. I'm just like,
look at me, bitch. Flex.
I can. Do you have a skin folder right now? Because they give me those BMI machines, you know, the bioelectrical impedances.
Right.
Don't use those, guys. Okay, don't use those. That might have been a thing back then. But don't use those. We have skinfold testing, and again, that's inexpensive. It's like $16 or $15 on Amazon for a cheap one. That's all you really need. You don't need this like super sophisticated one. We don't have to be superfluous with this type of technology, this equipment that we have. So yeah, it just really depends. But again, if I'm average looking and I'm not overweight or anything, build muscle first. But if you are overweight, I would still do weights. But I would focus more on the diet, and you know what? I'm gonna tell you guys this, okay? Because I know there are some people who don't like doing cardio, and that's fine. That's fine. Vice versa, there are some people who don't like lifting weights, which is just like, oh, all right, good luck. So I'll tell you guys a quick thing from me here. Back, I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago, when I was living with one of my exes, what I ended up doing was that because of COVID, I got lazy. Okay, I hit a bad point where I just got lazy. And I gained, I think, almost 40 pounds. So I was 190. That was the weight I wanted back. I'm 200 now. Right. So I just want to lose like maybe 5 or 10 more pounds, and then I'll start like hard bulking to see where I go from there, right? I have my seasons too, right, guys? Oh, but that wasn't a season. Discredit that entirely. Discard that. So I gained 40 pounds in, I guess, the span of the pandemic. So I had a belly, my face was chunking up, I had like a big neck, and like I was just kind of sagging a little bit. So, but I was still pretty strong, fortunately, because of all the years of training. So here's what I did. I did no cardio, and I lost 62 pounds doing no cardio. Chris, you know this. Yeah. We went to Jackson's to celebrate this. Like, it's true. Yeah. Like I went from 230 to 168 pounds, and I did it in a little less than a year, actually. Yeah, I did it less than a year. So all I did, I kid you not, guys, all I did is that I stuck with my weight training. I didn't do strength training. I didn't do powerlifting. I just did more muscular endurance, but then I still had days where I felt like I wanted to do strength, but I trained nonetheless. So I drank more water. I drank a ton of water, actually, because the reason why you drink water, and this is good for weight loss especially, because when you drink water, what happens is when you're drinking like a high volume and it goes into the stomach, it stimulates the stretch receptor in the stomach. So it goes up to the brain and tells the brain, I'm full, even though you just put liquids in your body. So longevity-wise, it prolongs the hunger, what's it called? The sensation, the hunger sensation that you feel like you have to eat something. So it completely depletes the fixation that you have to eat, kind of like in this pattern, right? Mm-hmm. You can still eat. Like I still ate, of course. I didn't starve myself to death. I didn't just have water the entire time. Like I had a lot of water. So I had salads. I mostly had salads. I still had chicken. I got off red meat though. I decided to stay off red meat because I wanted to do a little bit of like a me search, a little me search on myself. It's like, hey, let me try a few things. Let me just have chicken. I'll have some fish here and there, but I'll mostly have salads. I'll have little snacks here and there. Like I still had that thing that I was telling you about, where the whipped cream and like little chocolate chips here and there to kill my cravings. I still did that. Wow. But I counted my calories. So water, what I did, drink a lot of water. I still had my protein shakes because as we talked about earlier, even last episode, if you guys finish your bulking phase, you finish the phase where you're building muscle, do not get rid of protein from the body, okay? Do not stop with the supplementation. Everything you did, basically, in which favored you to build the muscle mass and to build your figure, to build your frame, don't get rid of that. Supplement-wise and macronutrients-wise, don't get rid of that, okay? So even creatine, like, I know there are going to be some people saying that, oh, get off creatine because you're going to not lose weight, things like that. That's not true. That's not true. Like, it's, in fact, it's the reverse. It's actually, it's a proponent if you mix protein with creatine, as I mentioned, because it still acts as a dual component of muscle protein synthesis and creatine retention, because we talked about the creatine doesn't add water, it moves water, it reallocates the water into the muscle for higher hydration and to have more creatine storage, so that way the ATP recycling still continues, so it's more energy sources next to carbs, next to everything else that helps you with strength training, muscular endurance, running, high explosive exercises, things like that. And because of that, in your mind, what you should tell yourself, okay, I can prolong my exercises, I can take less rest with my workouts, my sets, I can perform more. What do you think is going to happen if you add those three variables within your body? That means you're going to stress your body out more. Not in a bad way, but you're going to give it more stress, more adaptations, more room for adaptations. Therefore, you're also increasing the anabolic window. You are increasing the body's ability to go through more adaptations, and especially when you put in the muscle protein synthesis, it's going to have better recovery. And I mentioned this before in the last episode, recovery is like a super important thing. Yes, the program design is there. Yes, your diet has to be there, but the fact that you can't even recover properly, problems, very, very big problems, especially if we're talking about testosterone levels. If we're going to talk more about the endocrine system, if we're talking more physiology, I'm going to tell you guys another nugget here, okay? This is why you don't overtrain. This is why you can't just not sleep and you're eating bad, okay? And you're tired all the time and you're stressed out from work or your relationship or family members. This is what happens. As we know, cortisol released from the body, okay, that's something that you need that. You need cortisol because it's stress that gets added to the body, but like a decent amount of stress, okay? But
a lot of it's bad.
Yeah, a lot of it's bad because cortisol, it's regulation as well with like stress and things like that. But if it's too much, like you mentioned, it's too much. But now what happens is that cortisol also goes into the muscle cell, just like testosterone. So if there's a high level of cortisol within the body, if there's a high level of cortisol that goes into the muscle cells, or the trafficking, there's cortisol trafficking that goes around the muscle cells, and there's testosterone in which is trying to get into the muscle cells, it can't now because there's too much breakdown, there's too much stress. So now when cortisol goes into the muscle, going into the muscle cells, into the mitochondria and everything like that, now it's causing more breakdown instead of growth. You need testosterone and muscle protein synthesis, the protein itself, to get into the muscle cells to allow growth to happen. But if you have a high trafficking amount of cortisol, it stops testosterone from going into the muscle cells to allow growth to happen. That's why it's important for you guys to recover, because if your recovery is so bad, cortisol's too high, nothing happens. So now nothing is optimal. Your resting is not optimal, your recovery is not optimal, your diet is not optimal, your training is not optimal, nothing is optimal. So now you're not getting anywhere. So forming a plan where you're going to be resting is going to be incumbent of you guys to create a pattern on that. Create that pattern.
So less stress as well.
Yeah. Of course, you have to stress your body out in training. You have to.
Well, I meant, the different kind of stress.
Just the mental stress. Like, yeah, because if we're talking more human psychology now, there's distress, eustress, all that stuff. So the eustress would be the good stress, and then the distress is the bad stress.
Right.
But then you have guys also who they don't do well when they're on camera. They don't do well when they're on stage. So now
Yeah.
So naturally cortisol levels start to rise. So now there's more stress, distress.
That's like really short term, But let's say somebody who's at work who's like stressing, and then they come home with their wives, and then this and the kids, and it's like it builds up over time.
Yeah.
And it really like screws you up, man. It's not good for you.
Yeah, you don't want that, guys. Like,
Do an episode on that. Later on.
lowering levels of cortisol. Oh yeah, we can definitely do an episode on that.
It's bad.
So you gotta manage that. You have to heavily manage that. So we were going on that topic about the protein and such. So yeah, we talked about the fuel sources. We talked about how there's a hierarchy, and we're mainly talking about the macronutrient for protein, the different sources and intakes on the protein. And we talked a little bit about how we can put that in with our workout plans. So that's now implementing it. Okay. Oh, we were talking about my story. So yeah, I lost 62 pounds, and all I did was have protein shakes. I had my salads. I still had my multivitamins, my minerals, things that I thought were going to be deficient within my diet because I wasn't eating certain things.
Right.
Plan around that, guys. Plan your diets. Don't be one of those people who's just going to be like, okay, well, I'm on a boring diet. I'm on a diet I'm depleting myself, depriving myself of certain things. So now I'm just going to only eat 2 or 3 things and that's it. No, like, take the time to plan, guys. Like, it's your body. You have to have your body treated as like it's a temple. It's a sanctuary.
You only get one body.
Yeah, one sanctuary, one body, one temple. Like, treat it good, clean it, take care of it, make it strong, make it dense. So that's all I did. Now, I was like super duper skinny. Can you imagine? I'm 200 now. Imagine me looking like I was 168 pounds. Yeah, my parents didn't even like that. Shout out to my parents there. Love you guys. So 100. I know they're probably like, yeah, we didn't like you at 168. We thought you looked sick.
No.
Sick. Even you were probably just like, dude, you look different, man. You look really, really different. So that was funny.
To be honest, I don't really remember.
Come on, Chris. So anyways, guys, so the point on that one too is you don't have to go extreme on anything, okay? My main goal was to get back to 190, but I decided to experiment on a few things, and it worked. Great. My blood levels were good. Everything was good. I was still healthy, and then I gained my weight back. I went back to strength training. My protein intake went up again. My creatine intake went up again. But when you're losing weight, keep the protein intake high and keep your creatine levels high. 10 grams, for those who have like a lot of establishment with muscle building, 10 grams is good throughout the day. But if we're kind of starting and you want the creatine levels to kind of saturate in the muscle a little bit, you could do 5 grams per day. And then when you start getting more serious with weightlifting, you start getting size, then probably do 10 grams. Or if you're losing weight and you've already established the muscle mass, 10 grams also. All right. You wanted to add something to that, Chris?
No, I was just thinking of the numbers you were saying, 5 grams and what is that, 5 scoops or something?
No, 1 scoop. Yeah, one serving, guys. So most creatine supplements will just have the serving size to be 5 grams, which is 1 scoop. But right now, there's good research too, and I've talked to a lot of physiologists and even Scott Forbes, the one who I told you about. 10 grams seems to be the go-to right now. Because here's the thing. We'll go a little to side with creatine, for those who are probably wondering. 5 grams will go into the muscle, but if you take 10 grams, possibly a little bit more, maybe 11 grams, well, let's stick to 10 for now. 5 will go into the muscle, and 5 will go into the muscle, and the remaining 5 will go into bone mineral density to increase the circumference from the bone. So which is good, because in athletes, you need that. Like, if you're an athlete or just someone who's moving around, or you're an older person, you need to have stronger bone mineral density, because when you're older, even past 30, the rate of sarcopenia starts to go up. Osteoporosis, if it runs high in the family, you're going to be more prone to it. Or if you're just not eating well, if you're not eating anything, like if you're not getting even the good metals in your body, zinc, magnesium, copper, all those things, and iron, and all those minerals, and even some vitamins that help out with bone growth and help, like that stuff, you're setting yourself up for failure with osteoporosis.
Protein goes into bone as well.
Yeah, because again, like, if you're adding stress to the body, it's muscles and bone. So when the bone is taking stress, bone mineral density because the bone adapts to the training. So if you're training, let's say you're doing squats or bench pressing, anything that impacts the body in a diverging force way, you got the muscle breakdown, and then you have bone mineral density breakdown. So if you look at kind of some videos on YouTube on how muscle growth happens, especially if you're training, the bone mineral density from a microscopic level breaks down, and then for the breakdown to not happen again, it grows more bone mineral density. So that's an adaptation to training or stress that's been added to the body. So that's an important thing, guys. Like, the muscle along with the bone, they go through training adaptations. Okay, strong bones, of course, you want the calcium and everything. You want those to help out with bone building, but the weight training is going to be a catalyst towards that as well. The other thing to talk about here, I think we're done on the whey protein topic here. We can now talk about casein protein. So casein protein, that's the research on that is it's a slower digesting protein. So because it's a slower digesting protein, you don't want to have it during your workout or possibly even throughout the day. You want to have it maybe like 30 minutes to an hour before going to bed. So here's a little bit of the science on that. I've already spoken how whey protein isolate or even just branched-chain amino acids, which I'll get to after we're done with casein really quick. There's not much I want to say about that because I've already covered most of it with the whey protein isolate. It's if you're going to go for casein, that one is going to be like you're drinking a cup of milk. Like it feels fattening, but it's not. That's how it feels. Like it feels heavy, you know? So it's a slower digesting protein. So what happens is there's something in the body that's called the cell turnover rate. So we're getting into more exercise physiology here. So what that means is, let's say we have a circle here, right? We have the cells, the muscle cells, and we have the amino acid pool, okay? So we have those. So we have a circle. We have a cycle, basically, okay? So what happens is we have the amino acid pool, and we have the growth. We have the muscle cells here. So what ends up happening is we have some muscle cells that end up grabbing protein from here, take it back to the muscle to allow growth to happen. So that's what happens. It's a cycle. The muscle cells kind of keep grabbing amino acids, protein from the pool, and bring it back to the muscle. So it's always this. We're grabbing protein. The cells are always grabbing protein and bringing it back to the muscle cell for muscle protein synthesis to happen, more growth. And it happens overnight, which is good. Why is casein protein good? Because it prolongs the longevity of muscle protein synthesis, but it's slower. It's a longer process, meaning the cell turnover rate and the body feeding itself protein is prolonged, versus whey protein is fast digesting protein, so it's immediate. It's already broken down. The amino acids will go straight into the muscles for the anabolic window to kick in, and for muscle protein synthesis to happen, and for adaptations to happen. Okay, that's what it means. But with the slow protein, the fast muscle protein synthesis doesn't happen, just like how it is for whey protein isolate. Okay, it's not an immediate effect. It's going to prolong it, so you're feeding your body longer periods of time. Okay, that's how it happens. So it's still going to promote muscle growth, but just not at that fast rate. So casein is good to feed your body overnight, whereas whey protein throughout the day and with your workouts. So that's that. And then finally with amino acids here and such. Okay, like if you're planning on losing weight and you don't want the extra calories from the whey protein powder, and it's also dairy, so people are going to be probably a little allergic to it, and you don't want to spend money, I forgot to mention this one, the vegan proteins, because those have pea protein, those have different types of proteins in which people are probably going to be allergic to anyway. Yeah, so
I lost me a vegan, but
yeah, and on top of that, most of them don't taste very well either. Most of them don't taste well. So definitely go for the amino acids, and they're inexpensive too. You can go on Amazon and get different brands. I use Nutricost. That they're 120 servings for like $40. That's nothing. That's honestly nothing. You know, whereas we have Gold Standard and all these other brands. There's some pretty good ones out there. Yeah, Gold Standard. Yeah, they're fairly expensive, I would say.
They went up to $75 or something.
Yeah. So.
50.
But overall, me personally, I would choose just branched-chain amino acids, like just the drink itself, and not the protein powder, where it has the calories and things like that. So what you can do is, if you're trying to lose weight and then still retain muscle mass and still have like fruits and bananas and maybe like a little treat here and there, and still train and you're doing good, you're sleeping well, then you could just go for the amino acids. But for weight gain, we have mass gainers too. The mass gainers have like a bunch of calories, bunch of carbs, bunch of fats, bunch of proteins. Yeah.
I've seen those. Yeah, that have like a tons of carbs.
Yep, absolutely. So
calories.
So good. I think we're done on the protein topic there and such. So very, very good. The other thing we can talk about here is the carbohydrates. So here's where we struggle. We struggle so much as a country.
Oh, yeah.
We struggle so much when it comes to carb intakes. Fats play into this a little bit also. So here's the thing. There's a thing I learned from my undergraduate program. I think it's called the 1-2-3 rule. Shout out to Dr. Antonio. He's my guy. Great professor. Awesome guy to learn from. So the 1-2-3 rule is basically, it's a starting point for people who have no idea what to do with the macronutrient count. So the 1 stands for 1 gram of fat per kilogram, whatever you weigh in body weight. The 2 stands for the grams of protein per kilogram body weight, and the 3 is for carbs. Okay, so just when in doubt, remember this one part from the video, the 1-2-3 rule. All right, 1 is fats, 2 is protein, and then 3 is grams of carbs. All right. Now, and you can play with this. You can play with it as well. So me, I don't do 2 grams of protein. Usually if we're dealing with people who are getting into fitness a little bit and they want to groom themselves a little bit into a workout routine or some diet plan, then I would say do 1.8 grams per kilogram to start off with. That's the FDA approved amount anyway. That's usually a recommendation.
Yeah, a lot of people say different things when it comes to protein, depending on your weight and stuff.
Yeah, the 1.8, that's been a thing for a good while, except now we have all this research now where you can do 2 grams, 3 grams, 4, 5. But even then, like you don't really need to ingest that much protein. I wouldn't really do that. Like I talk to a lot of different physiologists, even when I go to conferences as well. I always ask them these questions, like, okay, it's like, is it optimal for me to get 400 grams of protein?
Right.
And they'll usually tell me, they'll ask me, they won't even give me an answer. They answer my question with different questions. Okay, well, first off, like, what's your training looking like? Like, are you trying to compete for something? Are you trying to lose weight? Like, what is it? And I tell them, well, I'm just doing more general stuff. I'm not really trying to compete. I used to do little competitions here, some competitions with weightlifting here and there, nothing too crazy. And I said, okay, now how do you feel? How do you feel when you are on this diet? Do you feel good? Do you feel stressed? Do you feel tired? Those are good questions, actually. Those are very good questions. And I always say, I feel fine. I feel good. And says, okay, then you're fine. That's all you need. But if it comes down to other things like monetary values and your conveniences, then now we have to start moving things around because protein is expensive now. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I told, well, yeah, this thing is that protein's pretty expensive. And then he suggested to me, these guys would suggest, well, I'll just go on pure amino acids, pure branched chain amino acids. You know what I mean? I said, oh, interesting. Okay, we can do that. So we can definitely do that, you know? So that's when I started getting into amino acids. And again, it's fairly inexpensive, I would say. So if you do more of the inexpensive stuff, that's where you start kind of going into and planning things a whole lot better because now it's fitting your budget, it's fitting your routine, it's managing stress, it fits your calories. So you got to ask yourselves these questions, guys, okay? And I've already told you guys have the autonomy to just look into all this research. Right. So those are excellent questions. So when we're going into carbs now, again, it's just when you're going to the 1, 2, 3 rule, a lot of times, and we have some research on this as well. We have diets where it's like, okay, do you remember we had this whole propaganda? I think this
food pyramid or no?
No, not the food pyramid. It has to do. Yeah, we can get into some of the food pyramid stuff, but there was this whole thing that we had like so many hard debates about this. We had hard debates about high carb diets or high fat diets. Which diets are better? Or could we go for high carb diets and low fat diets, or we could go high fat diets with low carb diets?
Man, I tried the no fat diet, and that was the worst mistake I ever made.
No, you don't want to do that. You definitely don't want to do that.
Oh, that was bad.
Especially because testosterone is fat soluble, so the body needs fat.
I couldn't focus. I was depressed. I was like, I don't know, man. I went into some weird shit.
Yeah, and fat satiates.
I didn't lose weight either. That was like horrible.
And fat satiates the body too. Protein satiates the body also, but like you definitely need fats. Like the fats cushion organs in the body.
That's your whole nervous system right there.
Fats allow testosterone to passively go through the muscle cells with fat. So you guys gotta remember, like fat has a lot of functions, guys. Okay, even having certain even certain levels of saturated fat is okay. I think it's if you have at least between 7 and 10% of saturated fat in your body, that those are considered healthy numbers. So I gave you guys a few percentages there. It's probably a little less, maybe like 6 or 7 to 8, somewhere around there. But those percentages in saturated fat, you're fine, because there are some organs that need saturated fat in the body as well to function properly. Even alcohol, certain levels of alcohol is needed in the body to have some sort of function, some function. Not like I'm not telling you guys a full disclosure here for you guys. I'm not telling you guys drink your butts off. Oh yeah, because Leo told me that certain levels of alcohol will definitely make my body healthy. Nope, that's not what I'm saying. Absolutely not what I'm saying. I'm saying that certain levels, okay, meaning that a certain amount of either saturated fat or alcohol in the body will regulate certain functions of the body. That's what I'm saying. Okay, so let's not get confused there. All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's been debunked a bunch of times actually, where there's no difference. You want to know why there's no difference? Because at the end of the day, when protein is added, when calories are added, when you take into consideration how many calories am I ingesting versus how much protein am I ingesting, it doesn't matter.
No.
It really doesn't matter. So, and you know, I even anecdotally and empirically, and I'm sure there's even research on this too. Like I showed you, I'm gonna find that research. I have it somewhere where it doesn't make a difference if you're on a high carb diet and a low fat diet versus a high fat and low carb diet. It doesn't make a difference because what it'll state verbatimly on the paper, in which I found, is all things considered, if everything was the same, what made the catalytic difference was high protein and the differentiation of calories. That's what made the difference. So if you're trying to go for weight loss and your protein is there and your calories are accounted for to induce weight loss, but the carbs are high and the fats are low, you're still going to lose weight. It doesn't matter. And then vice versa, high fat, low carb, it doesn't matter. So the point of that is calories are what going to determine if you gain weight, maintain weight, or lose weight.
When it comes to that, yeah.
Yeah, when it comes to that.
When it comes to mood and like appetite and all that kind of stuff, it kind of doesn't matter though. A little bit.
What the
Well, if you take in a lot of carbs, you're gonna be hungry all the time, you know. Instead of fast. If you eat fast, you're not gonna be that hungry.
Yeah, if you're just eating candy, like I know some colleagues actually.
Ice cream, all that shit, you know.
Oh yeah. But in general, like those types of foods, they have high calories anyway. You're just placating into your bad behaviors, but you're not actually being conducive to what you want to do when it comes to the diet for weight loss or anything like that. So yeah, Chris, he's got a point there. But also like he was talking about, like if your hormones are out of whack as well, it stops you. Because I know with women they have thyroid issues. So and here's the thing with like the thyroid issue, right? There's, I think, two different types of thyroid issues. There's a thyroid issue where you cannot really lose weight, and there's a thyroid issue where you cannot gain weight.
Oh.
So we have different realms there.
Let's have one of them.
Yeah, we have different realms. We have different realms when it comes to thyroid issues, right? Okay. Or you have the thyroid issue where you can't lose or gain. You just stay, you know? You just stay.
Actually.
Yeah. So it's a little bit on the situation thing, right? It depends on the person at that point. So... And so with the carbs, right, we're talking about that one. So we have the complex carbs and we have simple carbs. Moreover, the complex carbs are going to come from more natural foods, whereas the simple carbs are going to come from processed foods, okay? So, of course, here, when we're on a strict diet, it's in your best interest and incumbent of the individual, him or herself, to not give into bad desires with food, with desserts. Like I mentioned in the last episode, you can have cheat meals, guys, but don't get crazy with it. Like if I go out and decide to have ice cream, okay, I'm gonna have ice cream and that's about it. You know what I mean? And if it matches within my calories, I'm good to go. I'm fine. Won't see a big difference there, and if I'm working out, it's even better for me because I'm preloading. I'm preloading on my stored glycogen, right? So our mistake here in a society, for this country at least, I'm going to look into different countries, even though they're more the other countries like Peru, they're more agricultural, so they don't worry too much about that. And China, same exact thing. Like we have a lot of thin people, and the thing is with China back over there, a lot of people walk to work. So they're more active than we are here. Yeah. So whenever you see like those, they're thin and they're kind of somewhat in shape, maybe it's because they're just by nature, because of their society, because of how they go with their own rules over there. Cars, buses, they don't really use them that much.
Yeah,
they walk. They ride bikes.
It's an American thing, and mostly Florida. We drive everywhere. Mm-hmm. Even if the store's like just a mile away, we just get in our car and drive. You know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just there's too much convenience here.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Everything's just too convenient. So, and I would even argue it's like, convenience is good, but too much convenience that can work against us heavily.
Lazy, yeah.
Yeah, it makes us lazy. I mean, technology has made us lazy already. Look at us.
That movie, what is it called? It's not Wall-E. It's in Wall-E.
Wall-E.
Is it that one?
I miss Wall-E. We should get a next one.
Is that the one I'm talking about? The one where they're all like fat and the little thing in space, little shit.
It's like a brown robot goes into space and meets like this one white robot. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Okay. Wall-E's great. So, having some. But here's the thing with simple carbs though, because if you're gonna go work out, or if you're doing like a triathlon, like you and I talked about that, right? They have to have carbs. They just have to. So and then we can talk about supplements as well. It increases the blood flow, like beetroot juice or nitric oxide, things like that. We could probably have another video where we can talk about how we can implement that. Okay. But when it comes to carbs, like even some simple carbs where it's not so high in in calories, then that can still help out in certain scenarios. Especially if the goal is performance, simple carbs might have a little bit more of a role, because if we're talking about more complex carbs, the carb intake and sugar intake isn't really going to be high on those. But if we're talking more weight loss and fat loss, and yeah, you might want to stick a little bit more with the complex carbs. I know there are going to be some people who avoid bread as well. Here's my thing with bread. Okay, the only time I would recommend somebody to not go on bread, eat bread, is if they have celiac disease.
I don't know about that.
Because bread has gluten, so it's a different type of protein. Gluten's a different type of protein from the other proteins we talked about, except people have built an allergy to it, right? So if they have some sort of allergic reaction to gluten, it can cause problems, of course. So that's the only time I wouldn't recommend having bread. But if they have like croissants or white bread and things like that, say, okay, like it's. Here's the thing, like if you're gonna eat certain things, again, at the end of the day, we just talked about it with the high fat, low carb, whatever diets, right? It always is gonna boil down to the calories. So of course, if you're having this absurd abundancy of bread, eating it all the time, multiple times throughout the day, and on top of that, you're throwing cheese and butter and mayonnaise, all this high fat dairy stuff, like yeah, that's gonna contribute to putting more calories into your body. And
it racks up.
yeah, it's gonna rack up. All that is gonna rack up, and on top of that, if you're not even training, you're not even supplementing on protein, like there's nothing going on, like yeah, you're gonna gain weight, and worse, you're gonna gain body fat percentages, and it's just not gonna be pretty. It's gonna be a really bad diet, and then again, if you're inactive as well, you're just gonna be sitting around all day, like you're gonna feel like your heart rate is getting lower, and there's no activity, blood flow is lowering, like there's just nothing going on with the diet.
We should talk about fiber, though. I mean, is it fiber? Never mind.
Well, we could talk about fiber really quick. So see, because the thing is with fiber, you're going to hear many people say, and you know, the bread has antioxidants as well, with some other things as well. With antioxidants, of course, it fights off cancer-producing properties in the body, okay, the toxins that produce it. But if we're talking about fiber, fiber's supposed to help out, satiate the body a little bit more, right? But
like more complex carbs kind of thing, or like...
it'll come from more complex. Yeah, vegetables are fibrous. Okay. They're all going to have a certain amount of fiber regardless, right? So like if I have a bunch of broccoli, if I have this bowl of broccoli and I'm just eating it, I'm going to eventually be like, ooh, wow, like I'm getting kind of full here because that's all the fiber.
Right. And it's low calorie too, and
yeah, it's the fiber that's really kicking in there, right? But when it comes to fiber, I guess we could talk a little bit about what it does at a competitive level. So at a competitive level, because I talk to people, coaches who are, because I used to train with BJJ fighters as well, and I talk to other people who coach fighters. What we usually see, not even dietitians, but what they'll usually tell me is, I avoid fiber because it retains more water in the body, right? And I hear that from other physiologists as well, who will tell me, say, yeah, when we get to like the cutting phase, we cut off fiber, we cut off sodium, because sodium retains water in the body too. Yeah. So anything that just retains water, they cut it off entirely, right? So fiber is something else like that. So just another strategy for you guys. Those who are competing, if you're going for, because the thing is with MMA fighters and just people who are competing with fighting, combat sports, they're very extreme with their diets. It's a little scary sometimes, to be honest with you. Like you guys want to talk about diets? They're the ones who diet hard, and I'm sure for like professional bodybuilders, when they're doing like physique competitions, they do that also. Yeah, but when they're on that week, when it's like 1 or 2 weeks prior to weigh-in, the stuff that they do, where they decrease their meals, they decrease their sodium intake, decrease fiber. And they just probably supplement a little bit with like protein just to preserve as much mass as they can, muscle mass and performance. And they might still do some training to ignite their nervous system, so that way their nervous systems are still firing out. So when they throw a punch, it feels like their nervous system is going through excitation coupling. That's what they do. And it's a little scary, but it's necessary. I get it. It's because it's a business. Like they're trying to be competitors. They got to win. They have to, if they're going to stay in the weight class to be competitive, they have to be in a weight. Right. So competitive wise, if we're touching that realm, that's what happens. Let's see here. Dr. Zonantes, I got you again, my man. Can you recommend videos for beginners weight training? The basics? Yeah. There's a bunch of videos. Well, do we want to say names?
I mean, you can, I guess.
I want to say some names here. Well, you know, Westside Barbell is pretty good. Athlete X, he's pretty good.
Yeah, I've heard about Athlete X.
Yeah. Elite FTS is pretty good. Like those guys, like Jeff Cavalier is his name from Elite Athlete X. Pretty good guy. He's a physical therapist as well. He's trained with athletes for a long time. He looks good. Like, he's one of the older guys, but he looks good. He looks good. He knows his stuff though. He knows his stuff. He talks a lot about like the kinesiology and the anatomy and how to like get rid of injuries and how to prevent injuries as well as like ab workouts, because he has good abs. But like I was saying, Dr. Levante, and this goes on from like our previous video, right? Just go to the gym. Just go to the gym. Test out anything you want, because what I do want to talk about in a future video are workouts in which might not be as effective as others. That's an important video I think we need to make, as a matter of fact, because I'll tell you something right now. Like, there are some leg workouts in which I don't fancy. I do not fancy, because
you don't leg workouts, you said?
Certain leg workouts I don't fancy. And the reason why I say that is because here's one right off rip I'm going to tell you guys right now that I don't like.
Don't say squats.
I love squats.
Okay.
What I don't like, but I'm going to tell you a squat variation I don't like. A squat variation I don't like because it defeats and forces the body to move in an anatomical way in which it's not really supposed to. So rack squats. The ones that are fixed on a rack machine and it only goes one direction, right? Okay. Here's why I don't like that. And Dr. Cervantes, I'll just kind of add this to you, because I know that if we're going to get on a topic about like weight training programs and things like that, at least throwing something that isn't going to really suit you best, at least we can get ahead of the game on this one. The reason why I think rack squats are not good, number one, as I mentioned, it's a fixed motion. So because it's a fixed motion, it forces the body to go in a fixed motion. So when you squat, what happens? There's hinging of the hips. So now you're elongating the glutes, you're elongating the hamstrings and the calves. But when you're doing a normal barbell squat, you're hinging back. You have to hinge back. And now there's going to be a little extension. There's lumbar spinal extension, okay? Because you're coming back as well. There's going to be a little bit of extension on the neck, a little bit. Normally what I like to do is I like to kind of fall forward a little bit, but there's going to be a little bit of lumbar extension as well as me kind of going forward a little bit. So if I go a little bit forward while kind of keeping my lumbar spine a little extended, like the curve at least, but then I'm coming downwards, so there's some flexion, there's some spinal flexion that goes along with it as well. I'm going to add load and add stress to the lower back, so that way now it's activating, it's being engaged. So then what happens is when I normally squat with the barbell, I hinge, I load my heels, I load the front metatarsals of the foot, I'm loading the quads, I'm loading the hamstrings, and then when I get into that 90-degree position, I push upwards, I have the triple extension with the feet, the quads, well it's the ankles, okay, so we're using the ankles, we're using the knees, and we're using the hips for the triple extension of the movement, and then we're attacking the bar here. We're like kind of elevating our scapula, coming upwards, and even causing a little extension of the neck, coming upwards, and then we're causing the waist to come forward, so now we're neutral again with our spinal position, okay? And then we're engaging our back more because we're keeping this retraction as well on our body, so you can consider it almost like a total body, almost, right? So that's what a regular barbell squat will do. But if you do a regular rack, you can't really get into the position you want, because now you're stuck here, and you would have to, if you're standing completely straight, what's going to happen is you're going straight down. So the hips are barely hinging back, and it feels like it's more quad dominant. So because you're becoming more quad dominant, it doesn't feel like you're really loading the hips, loading the glutes enough. So they're barely partaking in the lift. So it just kind of feels like you're pushing more from the quads than you are with the glutes. And even worse, if you're positioning yourself kind of wrong, it could totally work against you. So it might cause too much knee flexion. You might have your feet so far forward so it looks like that you're taking a seat. But then when you try to push off, you're at this weird obtuse angle where you try to push upward, and it just doesn't look good. You're not getting the optimal effect because you're either quad dominant, you're either in an obtuse angle, so you're still not getting the body to work effectively as much as you want to. You're not getting that back flexion that you kind of want to load the lower back. You can't really attack the bar by elevating your scapula too much or getting your neck extension and using your glutes and even doing the triple extension appropriately. There's so much negativity that goes with that just off me, because I'm looking at it from an anatomical standpoint. I'm looking at it and saying, okay, That looks like I'm focusing more on quads. I'm not getting that triple extension that I want. Why am I adding a 2 angle? Like, it just doesn't do enough good versus the actual barbell squat or a dumbbell squat that's not fixing up an angle for you. You're letting the body naturally hinge. You're letting the body go through its natural motions. That's what I think the better workouts are. Workouts that actually let you anatomically go into your motions without feeling like you can't. You see? So take into consideration how those are, guys, okay? If a workout just doesn't feel right and it feels like it's hindering certain movements, don't go for them. But if you feel that you are able to access the movements adequately and you're able to produce good diverging forces, then do it. Propulsing forces, I'm sorry, diverging forces will be more external, but the internal will be more on just the propulsing forces, okay? So, long answer to your question, Dr. Cervantes. Well, not a question, but yeah, it's a question. Yeah, you asked me if I can recommend. So yeah, that'll be that. So looking at carbs and kind of coming back to carbs, I think we kind of wrapped up a little bit on the carbs here. So yeah, there's a time and place basically for carbs, okay? If you guys, my best thing is that if you know you've been really good on your diet and you want to, I guess, splurge, kind of indulge a little bit, and you want to have a good time because you have some friends who are inviting you here and there to go to like this one ice cream place, Jackson's, and you've been really good with your diet. Okay, reward yourselves, guys. Reward yourselves. It's totally fine. Okay, just don't overdo it. That's it. It's very simple. Like, just don't overdo it. And then once you have the ice cream or pizza pie or a burger, whatever it might be, okay, I'm good. I'm happy now. My dopamine levels, my serotonin levels went up. My estrogen levels and my testosterone levels went up because I'm being active and I'm happy, you know what I mean? Okay, now I'm back on the grind. I'm back to going with my diet. I'm good, I'm training. I'm gonna have to probably change a few things because I'm gonna do weight. And that's another thing to consider. Keep in mind as well, guys, the more weight you lose, the more work you're gonna have to do, all right? So if I lose 10 pounds, and let's say hypothetically, in order for me to just lose 2 pounds, okay, my total energy expenditure would have to be, I don't know, let's say almost 3,000, let's say, right? So that way I can adequately lose 2 pounds, to lose just those 2 pounds. But now I'm at a new weight. So now I have to recalculate metabolically how many calories I'm gonna have to, how many calories I'm gonna have to burn throughout the day, and how my workouts are going to be, the foods I'm probably going to have to start cutting out or maybe decreasing the volume on them to continue to lose weight. So now, if I lose 2 or 3 pounds, guess what? Now I have to be even more of a deficit to continue losing weight. Now I have to probably cut off certain things out of my diet more or decrease the quantity. So I'm continuously losing weight. And if we talk about energy balancing, okay, which is calories in, calories out, that's a famous algorithm, right? The calories in, calories out.
Yeah, I mean, people say it a lot, but yeah, it's true though.
Yeah, it's still true. I read a small study actually, and I probably should have shown it today. Actually, I was kind of going through it, but and one thing I can kind of advise you guys, if you're one of those people who like to kind of go on the scale a lot, I weighed myself every day when I was losing weight. To be very honest with you, I don't think there's something wrong with that. If you let it bother you like anything else, then yeah, it becomes a problem.
It could dismotivate people though.
Yeah.
If they don't see, like 1 week they do it, they don't see it like any, even though they are losing weight, gaining muscle at the same time, they don't see any change in the scale, they just like give up and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it happened to me a couple times when I was younger, it happened to my brother,
Yeah, don't give up, guys. Okay, don't give up. I get it. It's a struggle. It's a bit of a grind, and even for the ones who don't have this type of knowledge, I get it. Okay, I totally get it. But
don't do daily,
you not doing anything and you just going back to bad habits, just ask yourselves that. Okay, I'm working. I don't see my weight changing. It's only been like a few days, whatever, even maybe a week. Be patient. You guys have to be patient with the process.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for over 20 years. Okay, like, I get it. It took me a while to bench 400 pounds. It took me almost a year to lose 60 something pounds. It took me a while to understand the knowledge I have now. It's not easy. It's never going to be easy. It might be linear, might be a bit of a linear path, but that also doesn't make it easy. You guys have to work for it. If anything in life, if there's another thing more morality wise, if you're watching this podcast or any other podcast, another thing you can kind of just take as a morality gem is if things were too easy for you, or just easy in general, no one's going to work for anything.
Yeah.
No one's going to try for anything. We won't respect it. We're not going to value it.
Yeah, having a six-pack, gotta earn that shit.
And can you imagine us getting a six-pack in one day?
Yeah, if everybody had it, then no woman would care about it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why when you see fit guys, fit women, even though with women too, I know they go through surgeries, even men go through surgeries here and there, or they take steroids or growth hormones, anything like that. Fine, I get it. But even then, and then, let's talk about that for a moment, actually.
Steroids or what?
Yeah, steroids. So listen, guys. Okay, so one thing I do want to say here about steroids, I'm not going to dwell on this topic too long, just really quick. Even if there are men out there who take steroids, which there are, when men take steroids, anabolics, or performance enhancers, okay, they still have to train.
Yeah.
They still have to work hard. They still have to be on a diet. They still have to make sure that everything is implementing accordingly. So yes, I understand that T levels rise, so muscle growth is going to be more agonistic. Okay, I get that. But bottom line, they still have to work. If they're just putting all this testosterone and free testosterone levels end up increasing, they're not going to become the super muscular dude off rip like that. It doesn't work like that. Like, they still have to train, all right? Mm-hmm. And they still got to do. So just keep that in mind, guys. So those for the people who have this loser mentality where it's like, well, he took steroids, so what does it matter? That's a loser mentality. Like, he still had to work. Like, read the book. Like, look at the big picture. The big picture is, yes, fine, he took it, but he still had to work. Just like how you still have to work. How you still have to have a diet. You still have to have a good recovery program. You still have to stay away from junk foods. You still have to take care of yourself. That doesn't negate and it doesn't refute the fact that the guy had to train and take care of himself. And on top of that, like, with these guys who take steroids also, they're probably very knowledgeable on how to take it because they have doctors who tell them, prescribe them cycles. Because they have their high, they have lows. Like, they'll have a high low where they're prescribed to take this much amount of growth hormones or PEDs, performance enhancing drugs. And then when they get to a certain point, so they don't have the adverse effects, they tell them to start dropping their dosages. So that way they don't lose hair or grow breasts and they get roid rage, whatever, And the roid rage, that's not a thing, for the record, okay? Like, if the person's already an angry person, has emotional issues, has mental issues, steroids, like, it doesn't cause that. All right, guys? Like, it's people who already have issues that's where they're like, oh, he's on steroids, so there's roid rage. Oh, man, it's just some dumb propaganda that someone decided to make up, and then because people like to follow things, they like to follow trends. Like, okay, there's roid rage without actually looking into it. Like, it's not real. It's not real. Just like how I told you, there's no such thing as muscle memory. Roid rage doesn't exist. It never did. It just never did. Like, again, if I took roids right now, and you see me that I'm very poised, I'm emotionally in control, I don't get angry for dumb things, and I have good conversations with people, steroids aren't just gonna magically make me angry. Like, I'm not going to lose my emotional control. I'm not going to start punching holes in the wall because my protein bottle fell on the floor. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't work like that. It just doesn't work like that. No pain, no gain. Yeah, no pain, no gain, man. You gotta just go through the struggles. You gotta go through the struggles. Mm-hmm. Moving on now to fats. And I know Chris was kind of talking about the fats here and such. So fats, as we talked about before, there are certain things, even vitamins. Vitamins are fat soluble. The fat soluble vitamins are vitamin A, K, A, D, E, and K. Yeah, so vitamin E, D, and K. A, E, D, K. I think those are the fat soluble vitamins. So you do need fat for them to passively go through the cells so that way they can start doing their thing. So those fat's going to be good. It's going to be good for helping you become satiated. It helps out with organ function as well. I even told you that a percentage of saturated fat helps out with liver function even. Okay, like it's that you do need fat in your body 100%. And fats are even used to fuel after carbs aren't available, after glucose isn't available. So it uses fat, breaks it down into its fueling form, triglycerides, and fuels the body for more of the oxidation. More of the fat oxidation is what it's called. So it's using free fatty acids as a fuel to start fueling cardiovascular activities and even some muscular endurance activities, right?
breaks down fats. Yeah.
Yeah. But of course, like the high fattening foods, you definitely don't want that either, because now if you have too much fat, the saturated fat especially, it starts to clog up the blood vessels. So that's where all the plaque starts to build up, and then that's when you start having like blood issues, artery issues, and heart issues as well, because the heart's not able to pump blood out enough or quick enough or at a good volume. Because the thing is that the body goes through and leads the blood vessels. There's vasodilation and vasoconstriction. When we're breathing, if I take a deep breath, our body, our veins, goes through vasodilation, so it enlarges, it increases in diameter, and then when we breathe out, the heart pushes. So when we breathe in, there's these valves. There's like a primary valve. I forget all the anatomy with the heart. It's been a little while, but basically we have the atriums. That's what they're called. So there's the blood is pumped into the heart on the right side of the heart, so the right atrium, and then there's ventricles. Oh, it's all coming back now. And then so the left ventricle, which is on the left side of the heart, of course, that's the main part of the heart that pushes blood out into the body through the arteries. So we have two atriums, the left and right atrium, and then the right and left ventricle. So it's blood comes in when we breathe. Right now it goes in, and then when I'm going out, as I'm trying to transfer, now the blood start going into the left side, and then when I'm breathing out, blood is pumped out through the arteries into the body. So breathe in, blood goes in, breathe out, blood goes out. And so kind of just a little bit of anatomy there for the heart as well. Imagine how it all just came back to me as soon as I talked about it. So a little bit of a physiology and anatomy, how all that works, guys. So yes, you do need fats, 100%. The fats will come from protein foods like chicken, steak, fish even. Even fish will have the highest abundancy with omega-3 fatty acids, but also fish has the highest abundancy of creatine as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, creatine will also be good. So now that we have pretty much the emphasis on the macronutrients, that's where, again, the 1, 2, 3 rule kicks in. That's where the supplementation comes in. We talked a little bit about like the fat-soluble vitamins. We can talk more about like the minerals in some other video, things like that, or maybe we can mention a few. If you guys are going to, well, we can talk about some supplements now, actually, why not? If we're going to talk about how we can implement certain supplements that's not protein, anything like that, into diets, I greatly consider you guys that if you guys are going to go on a diet, first things first, decide, okay, am I going to build muscle? Am I going to lose weight? The goal setting. Remember that. We talked about that from the last video. So if I'm going to lose weight, by definition, again, I'm on a diet because I'm restricting myself from eating certain foods and I'm cutting off certain things, or I'm diminishing certain quantities, which is fine. Okay, great, cool. Now that we have an established battleground here on what we're going to talk about, okay, here we go. So if you're going to deplete yourself from meat, okay, now what happens when you deplete yourself from meat? You're lacking now in iron. You're going to lack in iron, magnesium, zinc, copper, the metals, basically, right? So you're going to lack into those. So iron, of course, is going to be responsible for blood formation, okay? And you need that. Otherwise, you start developing, problems when it comes to developing the blood and stuff like that. So you start feeling more fatigued. You start getting tired. So I forget what that's called, actually. And when you're lacking blood in the body, I forget what that's called.
I have no idea.
It's not leukemia. It's not.
All I know is that women need iron a lot, probably more than men, because of their periods and shit.
Yeah, they lose blood more. They're gonna lose more blood, so they have to supplement more on iron. They just have to eat a little bit more on the iron. Yeah.
Supplement that.
Yeah.
Oh, they don't eat meat.
Yeah, they have to supplement more on iron. So if you're gonna do that, guys, I know there's gonna be some vegetables, like the green vegetables. They're gonna have some iron, but it's a low amount of iron. I think broccoli has some iron. Legumes are gonna have some iron. But the thing is, when we're talking about like the vegan diets, it's a low quantity, very low quantity.
They don't eat enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Are they cleaner? Yeah, they're cleaner. Of course, absolutely.
But they're also lacking everything.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are lacking. So careful when you guys are picking diets. Okay, definitely consider that. So when you're considering that, okay, lots of iron. Now we lost zinc. So zinc helps out with DNA synthesis. It helps out with wound healing, bone formation, and it helps out with the immune system as well, guys. Okay, so that's important. Like when was the last time I got sick? I can't even remember when was the last time I got sick, to be honest with you. I couldn't easily.
I can remember. I got COVID, and
Well, besides the COVID, besides that, you know, I ended up getting that. A lot of people ended up getting that. But me, I think the very last time I got sick was maybe at the beginning of last year, like January, February. So we're well over a year of me not getting sick. And I'm proud of that, actually, because, again, it's like you're not taking care of your body when it comes to the nervous system. Also understand that when people work out or they're just going through stress, your nervous system starts to weaken in certain instances. Okay, that's definitely something to take into consideration as well. And what I recommend also, and I know people are not gonna like me saying this. It's not a bad thing I'm about to say, but it's like taking cold showers.
oh yeah.
Oh yeah. There's actually some pretty decent science about that, where it boosts the immune system, and it also helps out with recovery. Helps out with muscle recovery. So if you're feeling stiffness or there's like some injuries or maybe there's some bone issues and things like that, it helps out with the recovery of the body when it comes to muscle DOMs. We talked about that. Remember, guys? DOMs, delayed onset muscle soreness. We talked about that. But I can tell you something right now, though. If you're doing this for the first time, chances are you're probably gonna get sick because it's cold. It's a cold shower. So you're gonna be shivering and things like that. Then when you step out of the shower, there's an AC blasting you above your head. Oh yeah. Yeah, because when I did that the first time, I ended up getting sick. Yeah, because I went to a convention with some friends and I was sick. I was like, I probably should have taken that cold shower prior. I should have tested that after the test.
There's people that have cold plunges thing, and they have like a whole bunch of things, you know. But it works. It's true. Joe Rogan does it, you know. He jumps in a little thing for a few seconds. It's like super cold water.
Yeah.
You come out and you're super refreshed.
Yeah, if you're going into deeper science about that as well, like
you up too, like, you know.
Here's something I just remember talking about, actually. Like, I'm thinking about this in my head, like 10,000 things going on in my head, as you can probably imagine. So, why don't we talk about that for a moment, as a matter of fact? So, there's this whole thing as well. It's not that controversial, in my opinion. I don't think it is. It's not something we would talk about in conferences. It's not something we talk about in, like, little debates here. I don't think so. Like, if it comes up, it comes up, but then we don't dwell on it.
Right.
Cold showers versus ice cold baths. Like, you dip your whole body into an ice cold bath. Yeah. So here's my only thing about that. So there is some research on this as well, actually. So if someone is injured, okay, it's like kind of an acute injury. Like, it's not a serious thing. Like, they might have sprained something, or maybe they have like a bruise, like a contusion in their arm or their chest, something around there, right? That's where I think the cold baths are okay, because you're numbing, you're gonna numb the muscle, and you're going to take away those pain sensations. The pain receptors kind of subside a little bit. So in short term, especially if you're going for like a competition or something like that, that might help. Where if you're gonna put weight, like the joint, let's say it's the foot, and you just like slightly sprained it, or maybe you bruised it a little bit, the ice cold tub maybe prior would help out a little bit, so you can start competing a little bit and you can weight bear it. Okay, but if we're talking about the longevity where you're trying to actually recover the muscle, recover the joint, ice baths are not going to be beneficial, because it's like, think of it like this. I consider injuries, contusions, sports related injuries the same as if we catch a cold or we get a fever. The body naturally has to go through a process to recover. So let's say this, right? Let's say I catch a cold, not even call it fever. Now, good research will tell you the reason why you're catching a fever, okay, because there's a sickness. The way the body combats a virus, a disease, pathogens, anything like that, is by increasing body temperature.
Yeah.
That's how it combats it. So when you take heat depressants or Tylenol or like anything that stops your body from generating heat, you're not helping it. No. You're not killing off the virus or the disease, because heat is what kills it. It's the same thing as like when you're washing a cup, because it's dirty and has all these germs and pathogens. What do we use to kill off the germs? Hot water. Hot water kills it off. So, and soap, of course, but hot water, like albeit, like if you're gonna just use hot water kills it, not cold water. Hot water destroys the germs. Just like when you're cooking, and you have alcohol, like you use alcohol, like cooking alcohol or anything like that,
Kills the bacteria.
it's the heat that kills off most of that. So that way the alcohol is in there, but it kills off certain substances and bacteria or whatever that makes the food taste good, things like that, to help the food taste good, I'm sorry. So this is the same thing. When you guys are stopping the body from, like, let's say my hand is injured, the process is it goes through phagocytosis. It builds phagocytes, which is basically chemicals that take away all of like the chemicals that are built up when the injury is done to the body, to the muscle, to the bone. It has to go through that. Let it go through that. Don't let the body stop doing that. Like you're letting the body, you're stopping it from going through a natural process of healing, which is not good. So that's why like I don't take NyQuil anymore. I don't take Dayquil anymore. Like Tylenol. No, like my body has to go through this. It has to go through the natural process of fighting back on a pathogen.
Right.
So you want to do that. So when you guys get injured, it is what it is. You broke a bone, it is what it is. Go to a doctor, cast up, see what's the problem first. Like, okay, can you move here? Can you twist? Can you flex? Can you extend? Like, find out what you can and can't do before you start doing anything else. So I know we're talking more on like injury preventativeness.
Yeah, we're off the subject.
Yeah, we're kind of off the subject, but it's okay. That's okay. That's totally okay. But naturally, like I'm saying, guys, hey, this is how you take care of yourself. Like the nutrition aspect takes care of you. So and we got off topic because we were talking about zinc, right? So zinc, it helps out with the wound healing. Okay. So okay, you take off meat, right? And then fats, like you need fats. Like of course, like when you're going on those type of diets with self-fat, you're gonna be more hungry. But if you ingest higher grades of protein, that still has some satiating effects as well. So you going on protein shakes, and then if you have like smoothies also, like you throw in berries and bananas, which also are fibrous. Yeah. They're fibrous types of foods. It's gonna help out with the satiating. Okay, so we have that. So you just depleted those topics as well. So and then we talked about the magnesium. Magnesium is also going to help out with sleep quality as well, and it helps out with I think it also has something to do with like if you pair it with calcium. With calcium, it helps out with muscle contraction as well. Calcium has multitudes of uses. It helps out with bone mineral density, and it also helps out with muscle contraction because you need calcium in order for muscles to contract, period. Because physiologically, what causes muscles to contract is the release of calcium due to the sarcoplasmic reticulum. It has to release calcium into the muscle in order for muscle contractions to happen. The excitation coupling is what it's called. The active myosin fibers coming out, elongating the muscle, and coming in to contract the muscle. Right. Some little physiology there as well. So let's see here. So you just depleted that. So now again, you got to supplement now. You have to supplement either on multivitamins, you have to supplement on just pure zinc, different vitamins, the magnesium, the calcium, all that stuff. So you got to supplement on different things. So remember, guys, when you guys are going on a diet, be strategic about it. Be strategic, be prudent. It is incumbent of you guys to really strategize how you guys are going to do all this. So keep that in mind. Let's see here. If you deplete carbs from your diet, I'm not a big believer in that, to be honest with you, depleting carbs entirely from your diet. I'm just not, especially like we just described it already. With high fat diets, high carb diets, it doesn't matter because calories and protein at the end of the day is going to determine weight loss and weight gain and gaining muscle, preserving muscle, all that stuff. So I'm not a proponent of that. I'm just not, because besides carbs tasting great,
and they do taste great. Those fats as well, but
yeah, besides them tasting good, like you need them to function. And the thing is too, like the brain as well needs a ton of calories to function. A bunch of calories, and it even feeds off carbs to function. So when you're depleting yourself from anything, it's just not good. Like, see, here's the purpose of food. The purpose of food is to give you nutrition, to nourish you. That's the purpose of food. It's not really supposed to make you feel bad unless you have an allergy towards it, or maybe there's a gene in your body or an enzyme isn't able to break down certain substances. Those are the exceptions. But the point of food is to nourish you. Just remember that, guys.
That's the point of food. But there's junk food up there.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
But if I'm hungry right now, let's say, like if I have a bag of chips and I just have like just a handful, I'm nourished because it's giving me the sodium.
Yeah.
It's giving me
some amounts is fine.
Yeah, and I'm getting calories, so now my body's gonna start functioning off calories, and my brain's gonna start functioning. Like it basically, the cardinal rule, I want to say, here's a cardinal rule, as I mentioned. Food is supposed to nourish you, okay? It's not supposed to, in a perfect world, it's not supposed to do anything negative towards you, but obviously, again, as we talked about, there's some allergies, there are genes, there are enzymes that can't function properly when you digest certain foods or you try to put in orally certain foods. So again, keep that in mind. I understand that, keep that in mind, but if I tell myself, well, I'm just not going to have ice cream, I'm not going to have chips, I'm not going to have this and that, like I think that's very irresponsible. That's very, very irresponsible for people to just be like, well, I'm not going to have this and that. It's like, no, man. Okay, if you have a full cone of ice cream, then just have a quarter of a cone or half a cone, something around there. You know what I mean? Because I guarantee you, mentally, you're going to stress yourselves out hard. Because, like, look at how many people go on diets. You know how many people who go on super duper strict diets, you know how miserable they are? How miserable they look? How they can barely focus, how they can barely complete tasks. When you hang out with them, they look so melancholy. Like, it's not worth it. It's just not.
Man, when you say that, I just think of the vegans, bro. That's all how they are, really.
I respect vegans, by the way. Okay, like they're not very easy diets, and I know some vegans also who they have good lives. They're healthy, they're good, and some of them are weightlifters too. But they also understand that if they look a certain way, like they look in their physique and they eat good, they know full well that they're doing other things also. Like they have a high protein intake, they're training, they're probably sleeping well, they're supplementing on certain things. Like they know what they're doing. You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, if they're lifting weights and stuff.
They know what they're doing. Let's not pretend like they don't know what they're doing. Like they definitely know what they're doing for the most part if they look like that. So we have that, guys. Like if you guys, diets doesn't mean that you have to make yourselves miserable. Just remember that. So carbs, yeah, I'm not a big believer, a big proponent when it comes to completely depleting carbs. And again, if you decide to do that, then you're going to go into ketosis. You're going to go into ketosis, which will act as a proponent for using fat storages more. So the ketones will use fats more in the body to use as fuel. So that's one thing. But that usually happens when you're, I think, between 50 and 60 grams of carbs throughout the day. Then your body starts going through ketosis, using ketones to help out with fat, with free fatty acid, fat oxidation. That's pretty much what will happen, right?
I've been there, yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, we talked about protein. Like, no protein, like, you're decreasing in your free fat mass, which is muscle, okay? So we have all these acronyms now. We have LBM, lean body mass, and FFM, free fat mass, which is muscle, okay? And then fat mass, FM, okay? So get used to those, guys. I'm gonna start using those terms on these videos now. I'm gonna shove it down your throats there. Don't you worry. So and then you also have to just consider the bioavailability of certain foods, meaning, like, when you ingest them, how much of the protein, the carbs, the fats, certain minerals, and vitamins are going to be readily available for the body to absorb. That's another thing you have to consider. Like, so the quality of foods matter. You know, quality of food definitely matters. And you mentioned on our last podcast episodes where it's like, okay, get used to stop eating out and go grocery shopping.
Well, I think what I said is, like, the diet begins in grocery shopping, because if you're, like, buying a lot of sweets and a lot of things that you're addicted to, it's going to be a lot harder when you're at home trying to stay away from that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because, food addiction is a real thing. Like, I'm a food addict, by heart. Like,
everybody loves food.
Everybody loves food, but, like, bro, if you have fucking chips here and you have, like, ice cream there and, like, some other things, you have pizza in your fridge, bro, you're gonna grab a bite, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that. It's just, when you're bored, just go and grab shit and eat it, like, it's just tough, man, It's harder. It's harder when you have it in your house.
Yeah, and you gotta love the people. Like, this is where the loser mentality kind of comes in, also, right? Where you're gonna have some people saying, "Oh, but I love food. I love it. Oh my goodness, I love food too." But you don't see me like a human vacuum, like eating all these unnecessary quantities of food. You know what I mean? Like, I'll indulge on some foods here and there, but not like how people say that they love food and such. Like, I'm equally responsible for my own autonomy and my agency of just ingesting food and the quantity of it, you know what I mean? Like, no one else is going to be responsible. I am. I'm solely responsible for what I put into my body, all right? So we have that there.
But yeah, there's people out there that they eat like $4,000 or $5,000, 4,000 or 5,000 calories, you know, a day,
Yeah.
and they only burn like what 2K maybe, and they're just getting weight, bro.
I kind of want to jump into relationships for just a moment here when it comes to the diets.
Oh, go ahead.
So even so, like, what I don't like,
It's related.
yeah, it's pretty related. So what I don't like, and we mentioned this even before, and this goes back to get to the shoulder to waist ratio and the hip to waist ratio. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't buy this whole thing again where women are gonna say, "Well, oh, dad bods are all right." They're gonna say, "Get out of here, man! Absolutely not! Don't give me that." Because you know, within your female hypergamy, you would want the best looking guy you could possibly get, the most healthy, most formidable guy you can possibly get. Don't give me this whole "oh, I'm okay with a dad bod" nonsense. Absolutely not. And it's the same thing with guys too. Innately, they're not gonna say it because they're trying to sound like white knights, trying to sound like soy boys. Oh, like I'm okay with a woman who's if she's a little out of shape, that's okay. I'm into her because of her personality. Please. Oh, please, guys, spare me. Spare me the humor there. Come on now. So, come on, guys. Let's be for real here. So, what I'll see sometimes, is I'll see guys who are like in shape, and then you just see them totally distracting themselves when they're in relationships, and then days go on where you see them very subtly spend less time in the gym.
Yeah.
They spend less time. So days turns to weeks. Weeks turn into months. Months turn to many months. And many months turn to years. And then when you see them again, you don't even recognize them. That happened to me one time. Like, I remember it was a colleague of mine. I kind of forgot who, to be honest with you, but I remember it was somebody who came up to me. They used to be super thin, and they looked like they were kind of in shape. And then when I see them again some years later, it's like, bro, what happened to you? And then they're not going to be honest with me about like what happened to them, but I'll ask them just kind of, just to throw it in there, like kind of like an underhanded comment.
Yeah.
And I'll just be like, oh, so you found somebody, huh? And they'd be like, yeah, I'm in a relationship with this. Oh, that's why.
Yeah.
That's why. That's
That
why.
happens, man. I think
That's
call it a relationship weight or something like that, you know?
Yes.
Go out more, to eat more, to get lazier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, and look, I'm guilty of this too. Okay, I told you the story already where I was with one of my exes and because of pandemic, and that's no excuse. It doesn't matter. Like it's no excuse. I got lazy, but then in the relationship, okay, no, I'm not being lazy anymore. So I started losing weight. My ex, she wasn't into the gym as much, but I saw it. It's like, look, you don't want to focus on yourself. That's fine, but I'm not gonna just let myself go. I'm not because now you gotta understand too, like. The dynamics of the relationship will change. And I personally think, I'm just gonna go off a bit of a whim here. I'm gonna kind of take a shot in the dark here, but I think when you have couples who they're not like obese or like super overweight, but they're just not really in shape. I think if we're talking about couples who they're kind of scared of losing each other, which is I think is very bad on both ends, like it shows weakness. You'll have a guy who will say, well, if I get into shape, I don't want to make my girlfriend insecure that I'm looking better and other girls like they pay more attention. No, screw that, man. Come on. And then girls the same thing. And personally, even with girls, like they'll probably think the same thing. Like, oh well, if I start working out, I don't want to make him feel a certain way. I don't want to make him feel that I'm doing this because other guys, because I feel like I have to get other guys and things like that. We'll have a video about that later on, where it's like, okay, yeah, if you're in a relationship and your girl out of nowhere decides to start getting in shape, be on the lookout because now she's checking out a little bit. Yeah. She's checking out the relationship because she's like, okay, I'm gonna start working out. I'm gonna start getting a body. Oh, she's getting ready. She's getting ready to start looking into some options. Believe that. Yeah. Believe that.
Eating right is important, guys.
Believe that. And if you're gonna sit here and tell me, oh, but she's just getting in shape. She's doing it for me. She's doing it for you, but you're out of shape and she's getting herself in shape. Come on, man. Like let's put the equation together, man. Like if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, eats like a duck, poops like a duck, it's a duck. Like she's definitely changing up her hypergamy a little bit here. Come on now. But I think that kind of wraps it up there.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that wraps up, guys. So this is it. This is episode number 13. Second episode for having. Oh, Zarex. Oh, did you just come on in, my man?
A little late, but yeah.
Yeah, we're wrapping up here, my man. But stay tuned. We're gonna talk about relationships again for next week and such. So this is episode number 13, guys. Build a better diet, okay? Just like from the last episode, it's time to get in shape. At the same time, in the whole congruency, it fits. Build a better diet. All right. So that wraps it up, guys. This is Leo and Chris. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to our channels, guys. We also have videos on Rumble. Join our Discord as we put a bunch of research articles on there. This is the Unplugging, signing out.
All right, guys. Bye.